I thought it was going to take 8 tries to get it done, but apparently we need another try at it. The audio was unhearable. So I'm here to give it another shot. I should have listened to it myself before I uploaded it, and I would like to offer my sincerest apologies to the 8 or 9 people that had watched it before I had to get rid of it. Especially to Royal Chief 25, who made 3 comments on the video, which are very good comments, and I wanted to get into a debate about it. But hopefully he sees this part and knows that this is the one. Alright, so many teams are controlling their own destiny this week. We're already in week 16. The Giants, Falcons, Dolphins, Packers, Titans, Lions, Seahawks, Steelers, Chiefs. They control their own playoff destinies right now. Teams like Denver, and Houston controls their destiny too. There's teams like Denver and Baltimore that their fate is a little bit in their hands, but their fate is also in other teams' hands right now. Tampa Bay can't control their destiny if they win out. They can get a wild card. But their fate also rests with the Saints and the Panthers. And the Lions. So let's get to these great matches this week. They may seem one-sided, but they're going to be great to watch. Because some teams want to play the spoiler effect. The Falcons did it with the Panthers' perfect season last year. Right, the Giants versus the Eagles. The Giants with a win, clinch a spot in the playoffs, and I think they're going to get this done. I feel like Eli Manning's have a field day on this Eagles secondary. Not really much to talk about. I think the Giants are going to win really ugly. I'm going to say 34-14. All right, Atlanta versus Carolina. With a win, the Falcons will be clinching a spot in the playoffs as well, and I think they're going to get it done. I'm going to pick the red-hot ATL. Julio Jones has been practicing this week. They rested him up for the last 2 games. They didn't really need him as they dominated the last 2 games against probably 2 of the worst 4 teams in the NFL. Miami and Buffalo. I think Miami's going to get this done. If Miami wins out, they make the playoffs. So Miami, New England, that could be a primetime game next week. Or it could be a 3:25 game on CBS. Washington versus Chicago. I'm picking the Redskins to keep their playoff hopes alive. Jets, New England by a bunch. San Diego and Cleveland. I'm picking San Diego to win this one. I wanted to pick Cleveland this one, but I don't think they're going to be capable of winning this ball game. Tennessee and Jacksonville. Now, this is going to be a really interesting game if you think about it. Whenever the Titans go to Jacksonville, it's sometimes a trap game waiting to happen. At least that's been the case for the last couple of years. But I think the Titans will get this done. I think it's going to be a really low-scoring game. I'm going to say 14-10. I think it's going to be that low-scoring. I think the running game of Marcus Mariota is the difference in the game. Derrick Henry and DeMarco Murray will get some decent touches apiece. But I think Marcus Mariota running the football will be a huge, huge difference in this ball game. Minnesota and Green Bay, the Vikings trying to keep their playoff hopes alive. The Packers right now have the second wild card spot right now. And there's 2 things you don't do. And one of them we will get to later. But the first one is you never bet against the Packers in Lambeau in December. That's where the Packers always hit their stride. It happened in 2010. It happened last year. It just always happens. The Packers always tend to hit their stride later in the year. And I think it's going to continue. Indianapolis versus Oakland. I'm picking Oakland in this game, despite Indianapolis having a great game against the Vikings on Sunday. A 34-6 just beat down on the Vikings. But I still think Oakland's going to win because I feel like Oakland has got a lot to play for right now because the fans being in the playoffs for the first time in 12 years, they want to host a playoff game. And the Raiders right now are in control for trying to host home field. And if they win out, they're going to do it for sure. So I'm going to pick Oakland in this game because they know what they're up against. They know what they can get. Tampa Bay and New Orleans. So if Tampa Bay were to lose this game and Atlanta wins, Atlanta clinches the NFC South. I'm picking New Orleans to win this game because they want to play the spoiler effect, especially because they almost beat Tampa Bay just 2 weeks ago. In fact, they lost, I believe it was 12-10. Especially with Drew Brees wanting to finish off what might or what could possibly be his last couple of games in New Orleans. His last home game in the Superdome. It's a possibility. It could also be Sean Payton's last game coaching in the Superdome, whether if he decided to part ways with Sean Payton at the end of the year, or he takes maybe the Rams job, or he takes the Jacksonville Jaguars job, or maybe the Buffalo job if they were to get rid of Rex Ryan, which I'm about 99% sure they're gonna get rid of Rex Ryan at the end of the year. But we're gonna see. San Francisco and Los Angeles. Aha! It's a tie. 7-7 tie. In the probably what's gonna be the worst game of the year. I mean, this isn't even a joke. 7-7 tie. What's probably be the worst game of the year. Jared Goff and Colin Kaepernick. What's the over/under? Over/under interceptions this game. Over/under 7 interceptions amongst the two quarterbacks. I mean, leave your comments in the comment section below. So I feel like this is just really a hilarious game to talk about. Because really, I don't think anybody's going to want to watch this game. Arizona and Seattle. I'm picking Seattle. Because Seattle in the 12th man, you don't normally bet against Seattle in front of the 12th man. You never bet against Seahawks at home. That's not one of the two things that I was talking about that you never do. But you can bet against Seahawks at home. The Falcons should have beaten Seattle at home earlier in the year. The Cowboys beat Seattle at home a couple years ago. But I still think Seattle's going to win this game. I just feel like Seattle is just hitting their stride now. After that, sure, they only beat the Rams last week, but it was a really huge one after the embarrassing loss against Green Bay. Seattle's coming out with really, really much anger because they know they can still clinch a first-round bye. Cincinnati and Houston. Now, this is probably the matchup to watch this week. And here's why. The Houston Texans, if you were unaware yet, they're starting Tom Savage over your $72 million band Brock Osweiler. I thought about doing a whole segment on the whole reaction process of Brock Osweiler being benched for Tom Savage. For those of you that don't know, Tom Savage played quarterback at the University of Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has some talented NFL players right now. You have Larry Fitzgerald, LaShawn McCoy. Next year, you're probably going to have James Conner somewhere. Is Tom Savage the next Pittsburgh alumni superstar in the NFL? Here's why I would have started Brock Osweiler, and here's why. You wasted $70 million on the guy. You have to at least give him $37 million if you decide to part ways with him at the end of the year. I don't know what analogy to make off of this. It's kind of like investing your money on a PS4 when you have a solid Xbox 360. It's kind of like doing that. Because Brock Osweiler was in the shadows of Peyton Manning last year. So Brock Osweiler technically has a Super Bowl ring. Because he started in 7 of the games last year. He is what basically got the Broncos to the playoffs. Sure, the defense did really well, led by Von Miller, DeMarcus Ware. But the offense had to score enough points in the game. Because if you noticed, Denver's defense yesterday only allowed, Denver's defense against New England, not yesterday, a couple days ago. It just feels like yesterday. Only allowed 16 points. The offense just really struggled. And see, I think if Brock Osweiler was a quarterback, I feel like Denver would have won the game. Because I feel like Brock Osweiler is better than Trevor Siemian. And he's absolutely better than Paxton Lynch. He's even better than third-string quarterback Zach Dyser out of Miami, Ohio. See, I'm smart. I was kind of talking last year that maybe they should try Brock Osweiler at wide receiver. But the Texans have great wide receivers already in Will Fuller, Braxton Miller, DeAndre Hopkins. Just solid receivers already. Is Houston out Brock Osweiler? They shouldn't. I mean, you had him for a 5-year contract, so you better keep a commitment. That's kind of like, I would like to offer my sincere apologies real quick, because this is the only analogy I can probably provide that's at least somewhat of a point. It's kind of like, when you get married, you basically sign the marriage contract, your vows, till death do us part. That's like saying you have your first argument, your first disagreement. You decide to just leave the spouse just because you thought you were right. That's basically what the Texans are doing right now with Brock Osweiler. They made a commitment to have him for 5 years, $72 million, $37 million guaranteed. And they kind of disagreement based on how Brock was playing. Maybe Brock's had frustrations in the locker room that we don't even know about, or that nobody's telling us. That's basically the argument. And now all of a sudden they want him to leave. Basically, in a sense, filing for divorce. I apologize for that crappy analogy, but that's the only thing I come up with. But I'm picking Cincinnati to win this game. Why? Because I feel like Houston deserves to lose this one. Because they're switching quarterbacks this late in the regular season, especially when they're, in a sense, controlling their own destiny for the playoffs. With what they're doing right now, I don't think they're going to get there. In fact, even if they do, I think they're going to get crushed by whoever they play. And that's just a sense. We saw it happen last year. Think about the quarterbacks that went through last year. What'd you have? You had like TJ Yates, you had Ryan Mallett, you had Brandon Weeden, and you had Matt Schaub at some points, like throughout the last couple years. Now you got Brock Osweiler, Tom Savage, and all these different quarterbacks, and you've basically gone through 6-7 quarterbacks like the last 3 to 4 years. That's the second worst quarterback situation in the NFL behind Cleveland. So if Tom Savage doesn't do well, what's going to happen? Are the Texans going to probably trade up for the number 1 pick and take Deshaun Watson or Mitch Trubisky? Kind of what they did with the Rams last year. The Rams, they didn't necessarily need a quarterback because they were committed with Case Keenum, but yet they drafted Jared Goff and they sacrificed all these picks just for that, which probably ultimately led to the firing of Jeff Fisher. At least it was something like that. And we're moving on. Baltimore and Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh controls their destiny. If they get a win over Baltimore, they're in the playoffs. Baltimore needs a win to stay alive. But I am picking Pittsburgh to win. I think there's just no way, with a chance to clinch a playoff spot in Heinz Field, especially on Christmas Day, I think there's no way the Pittsburgh Steelers let that opportunity slip away. Especially when you have Antonio Brown on your team. I mean, Antonio Brown hasn't put up the most solid numbers the last couple of weeks. I feel like you got to target Antonio Brown, especially a win and you're in situation. So I think Pitt's going to win this one huge. And they can just rest their starters next week against Cleveland. Let's just face it. I'm sure the Steelers' backups can still beat Cleveland. Denver and Kansas City. This is on Christmas night. Now, last time we saw these two teams play each other, we had probably one of the craziest innings of the year. Cairo Santos, a field goal right off the upright, which kind of led to some luck from the Chiefs winning games. And I know there was Royal Chief 25 was wondering about the Chiefs. I said the Chiefs were overrated. Defensively, I think the Chiefs are a great defense. I mean, don't get me wrong. They've scored about half their points in the last 2 years off of defense. But offensively, I think offensively the Chiefs are extremely overrated. I mean, think about it. You have Travis Kelce, who's a great tight end. You have Jerry Maclin, solid wide receiver. I feel like he was better in Philadelphia than in Kansas City right now. Think about it. There was a time where the Chiefs did not have a touchdown pass to a wide receiver. They were all by tight ends or running backs. So offensively, I think the Chiefs are extremely overrated because of the lack of production the offense has done in games. the defense won the game against Atlanta. Defense kind of won against Oakland a little bit. Their offense kind of lost it last week because they had a chance to gain just 3 yards on like 2 downs, and they couldn't get that. It was just a horribly managed game by Andy Reid and the offensive coordinator. But I'm picking Kansas City to win this week. Only because it's in Arrowhead, Christmas night, cold conditions. Although Denver can handle the cold, I feel like this is going to be a really low-scoring game. In fact, I would love a 10-7 slugfest, especially in overtime. But I think it's going to be more like 21-17. All right, finally, Monday night, the Detroit Lions take on the Dallas Cowboys. This is probably the best Monday night game of the year. Very fitting it ends this way, with the best one of the year. Detroit, a really underrated team this year. I kind of underestimated the Lions this year. I said this is Matthew Stafford's last chance to Detroit. Because this was his ultimate test. Without Megatron, if Matt Stafford couldn't get a solid season together without Megatron, he was out in Detroit. And all of a sudden, maybe we're talking about a contract extension for Matthew Stafford. And Dallas Cowboys. Who would have thought the Cowboys would be 12-2 with Dak Prescott? Who would have thought that at this point last year? That if the Cowboys would be 12-2 in 2016 back last year, who would have known it would be by a rookie quarterback and not Tony Romo? As I said, the Cowboys' young stars, they're rising. Although I did get some comment a couple weeks ago where the Cowboys will probably lose a game at the end of the year that they don't expect to lose. Was it the Giants 2 weeks ago? Or is it this one this week or next week against the Eagles when they're probably going to rest their stars? But I'm going to pick Dallas from this game because the second thing you don't do is you don't bet against the Cowboys in Jerry World, especially in prime time. So what did we learn today? We never bet against the Packers at home in December, and we never bet on the Cowboys. We never bet against the Cowboys at home in Jerry World in prime time. And we also learned that we never bet against Seahawks in Seattle. That's what we learned today. And I think we've done enough learning for today. That will do it. Like, subscribe to the channel. Share this with your friends, family, social media, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, Tumblr, Tinder, even though that's a dating website that doesn't really work very well. So I hear. That's all I have. We'll see what we do this week. If not, have a great Christmas weekend, everybody. I will see you next time. I'm not sure what it's going to be. We'll do the playoff predictions, I hope, soon. There's just one of those matchups that I'm having a hard time breaking down right now. But we'll see what happens. I'll see you next time.